Hi, this is Chris Westbrook from Williamsport, and you're listening to White Canes Connect.
Hey there, PA Federationists. Welcome to another episode of White Canes Connect, presented by the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania. My name is David Goldstein. I am the treasurer of the Keystone chapter. Joining me today and sitting in for Lisa is co-host Stacy Leap. Stacy, how are you today?
I'm good, David. How are you doing?
I am great.
Oh, so good to be back. So today we have an amazing guest. We have Chris Westbrook from Jigsaw. He's also the newly elected president of the Deafblind division. He's going to talk to us more about those two aspects as well as his job as an accessibility tester. And he talks a lot more about technology and the things that he's doing with the affiliate and outside the affiliate.
It really is interesting, some of the tech stuff that he's doing. So let's get into the interview and hear from Chris. Chris, thanks so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
So glad to have you here, Chris. So many good developments going on within the NFB when it comes to you. We'll talk more about that later. But I do want to get the audience to kind of get to know you. Who are you and your story on blindness, and how did you get involved with the NFB?
Well, I was born blind, and then my hearing loss came a little bit later due to antibiotics and things like that. So I've worn hearing aids for as long as I can remember. So um, that's pretty easy. I'm totally blind. As far as how I got involved in NFB, I actually won a state scholarship all the way back in 2002. Right after I graduated high school, I went to the convention, and I believe Harriet Go won it with me as well. I've been off and on, mostly off, I'd say, for the last probably 15 years, and then I've been on again for the last 4 or 5 years. So I'm just doing whatever I can.
Awesome. So for the state scholarship that you got back in 2002, what college were you using that scholarship for, and what was your background?
Well, I went to two colleges. I went to Pennsylvania College of Technology here in Williamsport for 2 years, and then I went to Juniata College in Huntington for 2 years, also in Pennsylvania, and I graduated with a degree in information technology.
How about accommodations that you had at either school? That were they pretty good back then with accommodations? How did that work out?
They were. A lot of the times I would meet with my professors individually, and especially for the classes in my major, we would just work it out. Like they would email me the test, and then I would email it back, or um, sometimes other classes I would have to go to disability services, and they were still pretty good about it, but it was more cumbersome. It was easier just to do it with the professor, but not everybody felt comfortable doing that. So I kind of had to play it by ear, but I had a good college experience.
And you still live in the Williamsport area, is that correct?
Yep.
Why don't you? So you've been involved in the NFB, for, let's say, for the last 4 or 5 years. You said in that time, where have you been? What chapter are you part of? And why don't you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm part of the Jigsaw chapter, which is our at-large chapter. Um, so anybody that doesn't have a geographic chapter near them can join our group, and we meet once a month on the first Saturday of the month at 10 o'clock and via Zoom, and just kind of share what we're doing and how we're doing and all that kind of stuff. I'm the vice president of that, and I've always been kind of involved in the deafblind division as the secretary. Um, and it looks like I'll be taking on a more prominent role in that in the future.
That sounds great. I want to circle back to Jigsaw, but why don't you tell us more about Deafblind?
Well, deafblind is, we really felt like we needed a place for people with blindness and hearing loss. It's not total blindness and total deafness. Most people have some combination of blindness and hearing. We have people like me that are oral. Um, there's people that use sign language, not necessarily in the affiliate that I can think of, but I mean, people can use sign language when they're blind. They can. So we have a wide range of different things. I use a cochlear implant. Some people use hearing aids. So I mean, we have a wide range, and even people. I'd love to see people like parents of children who are deafblind, and that kind of thing. We really want it to be a place where people can come together and ask questions and solve problems and provide tips for each other on how to do things. Because sometimes it's a little bit different doing things when you're deafblind versus when you're just blind. Because you don't have the hearing that you used to, so you have to kind of compensate for that.
Do you know ASL?
No, I don't. I grew up. I wore hearing aids growing up, so I always grew up oral. And then I decided a couple years ago to get a cochlear implant in my right ear, and I still wear hearing aid in my left ear, but that has improved my hearing quite a bit. So I'm fairly fortunate, and then I can function in most situations. I have trouble traveling, in big hotels and things, and have trouble in large crowds. But other than that, I can function pretty well. So I'm pretty fortunate.
Circling back to Jigsaw, I don't know, how do you guys get the word out? I know that within the affiliate, the NFB of Pennsylvania, like you were saying, the chapters that we have that meet, some still meet via Zoom, but the ones that actually meet in person are primarily in pretty populated areas. So
Right.
how do you get the word out to the folks who may not be in an area that has a chapter meeting? Hey, you know what? You can be part of our group, and all that you need to do is meet on Zoom. Because to me, there's a lot more people that are in that boat that I think would really benefit from joining Jigsaw to get involved. And again, maybe not before the pandemic, but now everybody is so familiar with Zoom that it
Right.
might be a little bit easier. How do you get the word out to folks?
That's something we probably should do a better job of. We put a link on the email list, on the PA email list and things, but we could probably do a better job of getting the word out because we haven't had a lot of new members lately. We have a meeting at convention once a year. That's our one in-person meeting is at convention, and we've gotten some new members from that, but we probably could do a better job of getting the word out to other um, channels and stuff like that.
I know with the pandemic, Zoom, like David said, was very integral. Is the Jigsaw chapter, were they active prior to the pandemic? Did you guys use Zoom prior to the pandemic starting? Or how did you guys meet virtually back then?
I don't know that we met. I can't remember when Jigsaw started, whether it was before the pandemic or during the pandemic or what, but I think it was around that time when Jigsaw started.
Okay.
And I think before we were using, that's right, before we were using one of those pre-conference line things. And, the audio quality just wasn't great and people were getting disconnected and stuff like that. So finally we decided to move to Zoom. And that still has a telephone component because we have a few of our members who don't have computers, so they call in via the phone because, that's important too. So sometimes people in rural areas don't really have anything.
So while we're speaking of technology, you have a background, obviously, with a degree in IT. Why don't you talk a little bit about that? How have you used that degree, and what do you do?
Well, I was a programmer. I used to be a programmer for like 14 years before I got this job, but um, and that was an interesting job. I worked for an advertising agency, built their intranet system, but now I test websites for accessibility. So I work for a company that does that. We do some other things too, but the part I work in is the testing of websites for accessibility, and we have a whole system built up. So we write issues to clients, and clients get reports, and then they fix them, and then we have to go back and check that they
So
were fixed.
that's something that a company might come to you and say, "Hey, I want to make sure we're accessible. Can you check it out?" And then they get charged a fee, and you go in and test it and
Hmm.
go through it and see how that goes.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we submit a report to them. It's all online. We submit like an online report to them and have a call with them, and they get assigned a person that kind of helps them through the whole process of we do QA testing. Then when they fix the issues, they let us know which ones they fixed, and then we go back and test later to make sure that they're fixed. Because sometimes they're not.
Right.
Sometimes clients don't know how to test, so they just fix it and think it's fixed, and it's really not. So we have to kind of guide them through that sometimes. But that's
Do
actually the
you
part of the company that I work in right now is just checking website, checking it after they say it's fixed and checking it to make sure that it's actually fixed.
do you have a referral service? Because I know a bunch of websites that need to be tested for accessibility.
Oh yeah, we need to work on that because we have a sales team for sure that goes out and makes calls. Um, Unfortunately, we don't really have a good way right now to get info to that sales team as far as what blind people have used. What websites blind people are using that they'd like to be accessible that we could then try to, cold call them and stuff like that. We have Instacart actually as one of our clients, and so we've done some work with them and some other big names. But we do anything from banks to e-commerce sites to little mom and pop stores to, we do a lot of different things.
Now, is there a sliding scale on what gets charged? Do you charge the same amount, let's say, to a bank as you would a mom and pop e-commerce site or informational site?
I think it depends on the size of the site
Okay.
that you're dealing with. Yeah, because we don't scan the whole site either. We just pick certain pages.
Okay.
A lot of times people are working with these content management systems and they have templates, so we
Right.
work with them to figure out what would be a good page to test, and that kind of thing.
Okay. And as far as WordPress goes, so many sites now are built on WordPress. Is that
Hmm.
fairly accessible depending on, again, you have to worry about plugins and everything else then, but
Right.
fairly
Yeah.
accessible when you talk about WordPress?
Yeah, it is. It definitely can be anyway. I mean, it can not be. It depends, like you said, on the plugins and the themes
Right.
and stuff that are being used. But yeah, it can definitely be accessible. And you're
Right.
right, a lot of companies are built on WordPress. A lot of companies are built on Shopify too, and we've done some work with Shopify.
Is the company that you work for based in Williamsport?
No, it's actually based, well, it's hard to say where we're based at because we have people all over the world
Okay.
working for us. But I think the headquarters is in Canada somewhere.
Okay.
But there's an office in Minneapolis. There's some people that work internationally for us.
Okay. So
It's
everybody's working remotely then basically with
hmm
that. Okay.
yeah, yep,
I know you've done a lot of technology assistance within the affiliate as well. One of it is teaching other people how to use screen readers and stuff. Can you talk more about that? Specifically, what you've done recently with the parents division?
yeah. We did a class on NVDA sponsored by the Parents of Blind Children, which is something that's kind of near and dear to my heart because I was a blind kid once, and I'd love to mentor other blind kids coming up. But yeah, we did a class on NVDA. Who knows what we'll do next? I don't know, but yeah, that was a lot of fun. I think people got a lot out of it. So um, yeah, that was a lot of fun. And I think I'm also in the future going to be doing some coding for the website and different things like that. Kind of use my strengths for the affiliate.
As far as the screen reader goes, um, comparing NVDA to JAWS, do you have a preference? Do you like one over the other? You taught the one. Which one? If somebody were just starting out, I know it's a difference because of pricing, but
Right.
what would you start off with?
Well, if they're just starting out, especially if they don't have a lot, you know, NVDA is a good choice. It depends on what you're doing. If you're in school, maybe JAWS might be better because it does give you a little bit more information, I think, when you're doing like research papers and things like that. So, that might be something to consider as far as formatting and things like that. But for people that are just doing internet and email and, music streaming and just typical stuff like that, NVDA is a really good choice. I actually use NVDA at our work. We use NVDA and JAWS both to test.
As someone who just got his PC laptop delivered today, that I was kind of asking that for me. I mean, I am going to get JAWS because it seems to be the standard, at least for operating on a PC level. I've been using a Mac for the last 15 or 20 years. But obviously NVDA is something that I could start tomorrow with. If I open up my machine, I could jump right in. What about Narrator? Have you done anything with that?
Yeah, I haven't done a lot with it to know, how much, but that's improved a lot. It's not your grandfather's narrator anymore. I mean, you can get on the internet with it and things like that. I haven't focused on it a whole lot. We don't use it at work, so I haven't really. But I mean, it's a decent screen reader now too. So there's a lot of options out there.
Yeah, and the one thing that I was amazed at, I wouldn't have even considered getting a PC laptop, but I needed a new machine. And I thought, you know what? I watched Becca teach someone on the way to Pittsburgh how to do a few things with JAWS. And I thought, you know what? It is so much easier. The way she was explaining JAWS to this person, so much easier than VoiceOver. It always boggles my mind when, if you want to hit enter, as you would know on VoiceOver, it's not just hitting the enter button or finding the enter. It's 3 keys, and it just makes no sense to me that you've got to hit more keys than what anybody else could do. I mean, I get it maybe, but I don't know. I had trouble once using a laptop, and my wife's laptop, and I couldn't get I couldn't navigate to the button. And I'm hitting enter, and I'm hitting, the VO space bar and everything else. And finally my wife had to, take a look at it and navigate with the touchpad to get to it. But, and that was one reason that I thought, you know what, I'm going to learn it. It's a lot cheaper to get involved on a PC laptop than a Mac. And I thought I'll learn it. And I may go back to a Mac for a desktop because I still can zoom in very easily. And I do have a little bit of sight. So when I'm doing work online, graphic wise, it's a lot easier to use the big monitor and the setup that I have. But just some of the other stuff with VoiceOver, it's just crazy. And I still have not mastered it. So, Becca made JAWS look so easy.
That's interesting that you said that the enter key on VoiceOver is 3 keystrokes. So what do you use just the enter key for?
I don't know.
Enter key at all?
Really.
I don't think anything.
That's interesting.
It's just mind boggling. And I know when I had done some training years ago at CBVI in Chester, and I remember one of the instructors there I was going back and forth, and they knew that I used a Mac at home, and of course I'm learning JAWS there. And she said, "Oh, you know what? With the new operating system change, they changed a lot of keys." I'm like, "What do you mean they changed a lot of keys? I don't have the bandwidth to remember this key, and now it's this other key, and so forth." And that was one thing that I got with JAWS watching Becca talk about it. Most of the keystrokes and things that were going on were already Windows components. It's not like you had to learn a whole other way of doing things. You could tab to something, and you could, you weren't hitting control, option, shift, down arrow, and so forth to, I thought that's how easy JAWS is. I couldn't remember because, as I said, it was years. And I was just amazed at it. So so that's interesting. So I obviously am going to try NVDA first and see how that goes, and at some point put JAWS on there. Would you say you're as strong in both, or are you stronger in NVDA? Okay.
With the NVDA classes that Chris taught, the classes were recorded. So if you would like, David, I can send you the recording, even put it in the show notes too, because he does a really good job. And a lot of the people, we had about, I don't know, at most it was like maybe 30 people that showed up, give or take, I say more around like the 20 ranges were more like towards the end of the group. but
Okay.
they had a lot of good questions. Chris and I were talking about when we start up in the new year, his next course will be about JAWS, and then he'll alternate between between NVDA, JAWS, and voiceover, maybe, or just between the
The
two.
voiceover on the phone I was
A
thinking about
voiceover.
too.
Yeah.
I think that's a little misleading when you say, oh, yeah, I know voiceover on my phone, so it must just be the same on the computer.
Mhm.
And it certainly is not. It is
No,
not even close.
right,
And that's one thing that, when you're on an iPad or an iPhone and you're using voiceover, you get hung up somewhere, you just drag your finger and you'll hear something and you'll say, oh, that's what I want. And you double tap it.
right.
Whereas when you're on a computer and there's no touch screen, you're kind of stuck. As far as other tech, so have you built your own websites? Have you done any kind of website development?
I haven't done it professionally, but yeah, I mean, I've played around with it on the side here and there. Um, built some little things and stuff like that, but I haven't really done it professionally other than at my job. And then now that I have this job, I'm not really building websites anymore. So I've kind of gotten out of it a little bit, but I still try to keep up with the coding and what's hot in the web world, so to speak.
You'll have a lot of practice with your new job here with us in the affiliate, maintaining the website.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, the thing I like about us being on WordPress is if we need help, from outside the affiliate to do something, to code something or whatever. I mean, there's tons of WordPress people around
Right,
because that's
right,
what the internet is built on a lot of times. And
right.
so,
I read a stat. I think I forget what the percentage is. The amount of websites percentage wise of that use WordPress now, and it's so different from when I started the company that I have. We were cutting up, laying it out in Photoshop or Illustrator, and then cutting it up
hmm
and coding it. And in some instances, it was better because we knew exactly where we made a mistake with
yeah,
when you're visually impaired, trying to use WordPress and trying to see, hey, what did I click a button? In fact, I did a site about 6 months ago that I was about a week from launching, and I clicked something somewhere along the line that I don't know if I sneezed and I did it, if I did it intentionally, but I couldn't find out what I had done. And it took me a
mm,
long time to figure out what the story was. And then I tried to fix it before I realized it was something that I had just clicked. So then I had to click it and then undo what other stuff I did, and it just became trouble. But again, with WordPress now, it's just once it's up and running, you're pretty good as far as just about anybody being able to add stuff.
and there's so many different plugins for it too. Like, you know, that we could find that to do what we need to do.
We found if you do more than 6 or 7 plugins, you could really make things go slow. And if you, like we were saying earlier, if you add a plugin that there's a WordPress update and that plugin doesn't work right with the update, then the whole site goes haywire and you've got
Right,
all sorts
right.
of issues. And then it requires a lot of testing to figure out, hey, why is it doing this? And then maybe you have to get rid of that plugin or whatnot. Do you use special software to do the accessibility testing for sites?
No, well, we have a proprietary like scanner that goes out and scans a page and looks for different things. Um, Other than that, we really don't use anything. Now, we have sighted people that actually most of our people are sighted, of course, but they use software sometimes, I think, to check for like color contrast issues and things like that we can't, at least that I can't check for,
Okay.
because I'm totally blind. But they look at the color contrast of a site, and then we have some issues about that too for people with low vision.
As far as the overlays, tell us first of all what an overlay is for a website, and then tell us what you tell us what you think about them.
Well, overlays are things that the author usually you buy them. You pay a subscription fee. At least the ones I'm aware of, you pay a subscription fee, and they claim being the key word to like protect you from legal liability. If you have this overlay on your site, suddenly your site will become accessible and you won't get sued, basically. Um, I can tell you that our company has a policy where if we see an overlay, we make the company take it off before we audit, and that's pretty much how I feel about it. Um, I really don't think that they provide any kind of accessibility at all, and they just make things worse. So I'm against them.
It is amazing. A friend of mine, the company that he works for, was asking me about making their site accessible. And he said, does this sound right if we pay a couple $1,000 up front and then a monthly fee? And I don't remember what that fee was. It was fairly substantial. I mean, I'd like to be on the receiving end. It was maybe $100, 50, $100, maybe it was more.
Yeah, right.
He said, how does that make it accessible? I said, it doesn't. I said, it's an overlay and there are issues with it that they claim to make it, like you say, they claim that it's accessible, but it's really not. I said, if you have the choice of doing the overlay or saving that money and not doing anything, you're better off not doing anything because it'll just mess things up more so than anything. And that was his feeling as well.
I've used a few overlays and I notice sometimes like as I get closer to the bottom of the page, it randomly jumps back to the top and I'll lose my place, and it was just really aggravating. Sometimes the text boxes don't work. Like it says like input email address, and then with the overlay on, the text box don't work. You're hitting enter to get inside the text field. It doesn't happen. Nothing happens. And I ended up just giving up on the website altogether or getting like sighted assistance. But even then it's just aggravating because us as blind people, we want to be as independent as possible, and having to rely so much on sighted assistance when we know how to use computers. It's not our fault the overlays are there.
And I think that's the most important thing, the independence. I know if it's 2 a.m. and everybody in the house here is sleeping, I don't have sighted assistance and I want to be able to do it then. I don't want to have to wait till the next day. I'm on a roll. I want to keep going. And to have to rely on that because someone has done to the site makes it either completely inaccessible or somewhat inaccessible. With Deafblind, I guess you just meet at the convention? Do you meet monthly on Zoom? How does
we would like to start meeting monthly on Zoom. Traditionally we've only met during the convention, but we would like. Well, I would like to start meeting, and I think the people that I've talked to that are members of the division, just over the last month or so since all that happened, we feel the same way. So, yeah, I think we're going to start meeting monthly.
How many members do you think are in Deafblind?
I would say it's really small. I would say like maybe 5, but I think there's more people out there, that could really use an affiliate like that.
Right.
I think there's some denial from some people, maybe, just like any medical condition.
Right.
And there's, oh, that doesn't really apply to me. Oh, my hearing's not bad enough. Oh, this and that and the other thing. And what it is a problem.
I know you had said earlier that you have a hearing aid and a cochlear implant. Can you explain the differences between the two?
Yeah, a cochlear implant is a device where they actually have to do a surgery and put the electrodes in your brain. Well, I don't know if it's in your brain, but in your cochlea, and then you have a processor that you wear that's kind of like a hearing aid, only in the sense that it has microphones and stuff, but it's really different. I had to get used to it. It took me like about 6 months really before I really got used to the cochlear implant, and it's way different than a hearing aid because it does more than just amplify the sound. You're basically replacing the cochlea in your ear, and with these electrodes stimulating it, sending the electrical signals directly into your brain, basically, and it's really crazy stuff. But I'm glad I got it now because it's it's allowed me to hear more and stuff like that. But it's been there for a while. It was really touch and go, and I was wondering if I was going to regret having the surgery or not. But it's pretty minor surgery as far as surgeries go. But
it's still surgery, and
it's still surgery, and once you get it, that like I can't wear a hearing aid in that ear now because they cut the nerve. So they are doing different things if you have more hearing with like hybrid. So they try to save some of your hearing and put the cochlear implant in, but I didn't have enough hearing worth saving, so they just took it all away. But like, I can't wear a hearing aid in that ear now because it's like it wouldn't do me any good. So
Now, would you
there's no
consider
going back.
doing it in the other ear, or because of that you wouldn't consider that?
If it got worse, I would consider it. Also, the cochlear implants music is kind of messed up with the cochlear implants still. Um, I guess music is a lot more complicated than speech as far as the frequencies and you can imagine, all the different notes and stuff.
Right.
And that I don't enjoy music as much as I used to. I still enjoy it, and I do play violin and saxophone and stuff like that. But um, so I use my left ear a lot to listen to music because that's still like natural hearing. So
Okay.
I would only consider it if the left ear got worse.
Okay.
But if the left ear got worse, yeah, I would definitely consider it. Um, Especially now that I know what it's like, going through the recovery and all that.
For me, prior to my blindness, I watched a lot of comedy movies, and now I watch a lot of stand up because you don't need to pay attention to the scenery when there's stand up comedy. You just have one guy standing there telling jokes. So I watch a lot of stand up comedy now compared to how I was prior to my blindness. And like you
Hmm.
said, that's because of that loss of sight. I felt like I couldn't enjoy a movie like I used to, seeing all the nuances and all the things that I could see before. And then when I found audio description, it does help out a lot. I'm starting to get back to watching movies, but not all the movies I want to watch have audio description in them.
Chris, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Just that you can do, deaf blindness doesn't have to hold you back, just like blindness doesn't have to hold you back. I mean, there's certain things you do differently, but I'm very involved in my church. I'm different things like that. So, um, yeah, I mean, that's that's really all I'd like to say is that you know if uh, if you want to do it, and that's what the division's here for, is to help people learn how to do things, share tips and tricks and things like that. So
And if somebody wanted to contact you to get involved in Jigsaw or the Deafblind division, do you have some contact info?
yeah, my email is westbchris@gmail.com.
Okay, great. And we'll add that in the show notes so you can just tap that and get a hold of Chris if you want to get involved with Jigsaw or the Deafblind division. And Chris, we really appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks again to Chris for stopping by and giving us the input on the Deafblind division and Jigsaw. And that's, Stacy, it's so important that if you are in a part of the state where there is not a local meeting, Jigsaw is a perfect way to get involved in the federation, and you can do it via Zoom. Everybody on there is in the same boat. They're in a remote location where there's no local meetings available. But at least you get together with folks who are like you and have the same problems, whether it's getting to the supermarket or doing something around the house. It's so important to get involved. So please reach out to Chris if you're interested in joining up on the Jigsaw chapter to get involved there.
Yeah, and I love the name, as puzzle pieces. We all come together and fit together. And I love that about the chapter, just all the divisions that we have within the affiliate.
Right. And it's, again, just a great way to get involved if you can't get out and get to a local meeting. We do have a few other things coming up. Obviously, it's the holidays. I know a lot of chapters and divisions are having parties. The Keystone chapter will be celebrating the holidays after their December 10th meeting at the Penn Museum. We're looking forward to that. That's always a lot of fun, and can't wait to see what kind of craziness goes on there with the Secret Santa or whatever you want to call it this year. It'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yes, definitely. I'm excited just to, be around everybody and just be able to socialize. The meeting is really good to get information, but to just socialize and get to know each other, that's wonderful. In addition to the holidays, what the parents of blind children, the Pennsylvania Organization of Parents of Blind Children, they have their chocolate candy fundraiser that goes on from now until December 15th. We'll make sure that we put the link in the show notes. If you guys can support, that'd be truly amazing. It's going to go to things relating to the parenting division and to benefit the blind children.
Another fundraiser that's going on is the Capital chapter is doing a Panera fundraiser where they make some money when you just buy a Panera gift card. So if you ever eat at Panera, why not support the Capital chapter, buy a gift card, and you always have it on you. You can just run into Panera and get lunch or dinner or whatever it might be. I'll put a link in the show notes so you can go right there and purchase one or multiple.
Definitely get that Panera bread sandwich and then come visit us over on Coffee with the President and Board. That's going to be on Wednesday, December 7th, on my birthday.
Well,
So
in advance, happy birthday.
thank you.
And I'm guessing you're going to be what, about 25, 26?
Oh, you're so sweet. 34. Thank you. But Coffee with the President and Board is the time where the board of the affiliate come together and talk about what's happening on a state level. Everyone gets a chance to meet them and just interact and network. So it's a wonderful opportunity. Definitely grab that Panera bread sandwich, eat that chocolate candy, and grab a cup of coffee with us.
And maybe somebody will have some birthday cake for you. You're going to be on there, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So there you go. So somebody will have some cake there for you somewhere. I mean, you won't be able to taste it, but they'll know it's in their
virtually,
thoughts.
I'll virtually eat it. Yeah.
So, Stacey, thanks again for sitting in. Before we go, let's tell everybody about contacting us. Let us know what you think. Questions, comments, show ideas, tips, ratings, reviews, whatever you've got. We want to hear from you. 267-338-4495. You've got up to 3 minutes. Please leave your name and town if you do call in. Again, 267-338-4495.
And if you want to leave us an email instead, our email is whitecanesconnect@gmail.com. Like David said, definitely with any show ideas, any comments, feedback, criticism, positive compliments, anything. We look forward to hearing from you soon.
Even birthday wishes for Stacey. Please reach out. Remember, December 7th. It's a day that will live in infamy. And Stacey will never forget it either. Stacey, thanks again for sitting in today.
Oh, thank you for having me again.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Take care.
Bye.